Welcome to the Independent Artist Podcast, sponsored by the National Association of Independent Artists.
Also sponsored by Zapplication. I'm Will Armstrong, and I'm a mixed media artist.
I'm Douglas Sigworth, glassblower. Join our conversations with professional working artists. Well, hello, everybody. We are back here on the podcast airwaves, and Will is in Santa Fe. How you doing, my friend?
I am. Yeah, I'm back. It's
Back
it's
home.
been a little bit of a whirlwind here trying to get back, but yeah, here I am.
Here you are. I saw you at the last show with your whole life shoved into a trailer and in St. Louis,
yeah.
on the streets of St. Louis.
Sorry, Sarah Umloff. I used my free parking pass to park my belongings for the entire weekend there in the artist parking. It looked just like an artist vehicle, and it had the pass, but it had my dirty undies and stereo equipment and all that good stuff. So, yeah, it was funny though. I was able to help out a good friend, Allison Antleman.
Oh, sure.
Needed a tent and some display stuff. And, you know, I don't know if you've ever gotten help from somebody, but you always feel a little bit at their mercy. And, Allison was like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much." And I'm like, "Allison, I could literally set up like 4 booths right now. Like you don't even, I could build a house here if you want. Like I could do, I've got some lumber. Yeah, I had everything. So, happy to help out, as I could. If anybody had needed anything there at St. Louis, I was like, "Oh, you need an extra set of weights? How about a craft hut from 2002? Would you like some cleaning products?"
All sorts of crap in there, huh?
Everything. Everything under the goddamn sun. So,
Well, the show hotel where we stayed, that parking lot, that's attached to the hotel, that is one tight parking area. And I saw so many artists, myself included, having to do that van shimmy, where you have to kind of do the forward 3 inches, back 5 inches until you could get
dance
into that spot.
For sure, it's a dance. I looked out my hotel window. I was staying in the same spot, and I saw the crowning jewel of a parking spot for trailer owners. Like, the spot that I'm talking about, the one that's lined up with the exit so that it's a clear shot.
Absolutely.
And I was in the hotel just standing there and looking out the window in what I wear to bed. And it's an undies theme today.
Okay.
So far. I don't know where this is going, but
All right.
standing there looking out the window, tempted to moon Rob Matthews as I see him moving his van, and then I realize that the golden spot is available. So I'm pulling on my jeans like Marty McFly and just taking off running down the hall. And
Before somebody else nabbed it, right?
oh my God, yeah. But it was amazing because everybody was leaving to try to go set up. So that's when I moved my trailer in to kind of slide in, since it didn't have the art stuff in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got the coup de grace, the crowning jewel of trailer parking. And man, that parking lot is tricky.
It was, yeah. Well, speaking of St. Louis, how did it all go for you? What was it like this year?
It's expertly run. Last year I took notes. I took notes on what they were looking for from me, and hey, I really loved this style and et cetera, this theme. And so I made sure that I was ready, and those were the pieces that they could not have been less interested in.
Oh my God, you turned yourself into a pretzel. You show up and it's like, darn.
I guess, that's always the way. It's the Murphy's Law. Everything that you prepare for in this business is not going to be what you're going to sell your older work, or you're going to sell this or that if you prepare. I don't know, but I still feel good. It left me feeling good with the body of work that I have left.
Cool.
And I had a decent enough weekend monetarily, so that works.
Did you happen to know that there is a Chihuly exhibit in St. Louis this week?
You might be surprised to find out that I don't really give a shit.
Well, I heard about it nonstop. Everyone walked in the booth and said, "Oh, you might want to know this. There's a Chihuly exhibit here."
That's hilarious. They just kind of assume he is your god. But actually, I don't mind Chihuly.
No, and I don't either.
Stuff.
But it's one of those things where when you hear it, nonstop. But I have to say, because of that exhibit, we had a phenomenal show. I mean,
nice.
Glass was on everyone's mind, so we did really well.
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder if that's really cool. It was in the news and yeah, like you said, on people's minds. That's fantastic. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It had kind of an interesting situation I wanted to talk about with a potential commission, where somebody walked in our booth and they saw one of our more substantial pieces, and their reaction to it was, "Oh my God, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want. I've been looking forever for it, blah, blah, blah." So to me, it felt like it was going to be an easy across the finish line kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So we had a Zoom meeting this week, and when we got to talking, this perfect thing started to evolve in their minds.
Okay.
Which, I mean, I understand that collectors are gonna, they want something particular and specific or whatever, but enough time had gone by that they were now starting to dream up variations of the theme.
This is perfect as long as you do it this way and you do it this kind. And do you do little angels? Can you put angel wings on these?
Well,
I know the type.
I don't want to get down on it because, I mean, it's not necessarily out of the conversation yet. But what I wanted to kind of talk about with it was, as the conversation was starting to stray more and more away from what we do,
right?
I started to feel that pressure to kind of chase that, like, to make them happy. And to kind of turn myself into knots and say, well, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. And then it kind of settled in over me, like, the complications of trying to make this piece that they're envisioning that is different than what they saw is not going to make them happy ultimately. And I don't think I'll be successful at it. And it's, time and energy into something that didn't necessarily feel authentic anymore. So,
right. Did it happen to match up with somebody else that you know? Could you kick them to somebody else?
Not anyone that I know that's a contemporary, but some of the bigger name type people out there that people might know, and that sort of thing. So
I had one in Cherry Creek come by, and they were like, "Oh my gosh!" And if you know my work, I work mostly in black and white. I've started sprinkling in a little bit more color here and there, but I think I've told this before, but it made me feel really good. They were talking about, "Oh my gosh, I love your work. Can you do something a little bit more brightly colored and more mid-century modern?" And I'm like, have you met the Grosjefinkos? Because they're right around the corner, and they probably already have that in their booth. So why don't you just go down there? And it made you feel good because all of a sudden I don't have to do a commission that is out of my wheelhouse that's going to take me 10 times longer that, the client and the artist may not necessarily be happy with. So why not give them to somebody that can nail that look?
Yeah. Well, in this case, I tried to keep them invested in what they originally were feeling that enthusiasm towards. That was real. When they walked in and saw what we do, that was real. So I was trying to walk the line with keeping boundaries with what we're willing to do, but then, also not losing the sale. So I don't know. We'll see what happens down the road. It's going to involve more conversation and everything.
Yeah. A mark of highly successful people is saying no. So you could always do that too. Right. Sometimes I don't want to do those commissions, but I hear you working towards it, and that works for you too.
Yeah.
All right. What's next for you? Are you going back to Plaza next weekend?
We are. We're getting ready for the Plaza Art Fair in Kansas City, but it really is starting to feel like we're wrapping up this year. We just have 2 more shows. So we have Plaza next week, and then we don't have a show till November, and that's it for 2023, and I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, I'm ready to put a fork in it, but I've backloaded my year, so I'm not quite ready. Well, that'll be interesting. That I'll see it in La Quinta. I've never done that show. I've never shown. I haven't shown in California since the 3rd year, I think, of this body of work. So it's been like 9 years since I've been to California to show. So,
oh wow! And I mean, it's right there. You're not that far from Southern California.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm only 10 or 12 hours, and it's a pretty easy drive here from New Mexico, just driving across Arizona and through the desert and up through Bakersfield, or down. Not that would be Sausalito. I don't know. I just wanted to say Bakersfield because the last time I drove, I got to see Merle Haggard Highway, and that made me happy.
Awesome. That's great.
It's the little things, Douglas. It's the little things that mean a lot.
Hey, so speaking of California, this kind of worked out interesting. So one of our other kind of interactions with a collector, a sale that we made that I thought was kind of an interesting, it kind of pushed them over the finish line, was they didn't really want us to ship this piece to them. They were hoping it could just kind of arrive at their door.
Right.
They bought it in St. Louis, but their other home is in Denver. So Denver is on the way to this other show we're doing in Southern California. And when I told them about the kind of the lineup, they were like, done, pulled out the credit card, said, let's do it. But it made me think about a shift that's kind of been happening with how I collect customer names this year. I'm finding that I have collectors that I'm seeing at multiple events at multiple homes that they have throughout the country.
Nice.
And so I'm kind of stopping the whole idea of categorizing by show and only saying I'm going to send my emails to the people in St. Louis or my people
so
in wherever.
You're saying that there's something to the fact that I just have one mailing list and everybody, it's like if I'm showing an artist fair, then the people in Denver are getting an email. Is that what you're saying? It's okay.
I'm saying you're finally in style, Will.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. The second home people. All right. That's good.
Yeah. I'm treating it like more like quarterly newsletters. And giving a list of shows I'll be at and
that's
and kind of things we're working on. So that's kind of a different approach than what we've done.
Speaking to that, I had a client that came to see me in St. Louis that bought something for me that, again, they were mailing list because they were in St. Louis to see Guns N' Roses. So they had come down from Chicago. So if I'd batched it, but it would have probably been in the Midwest batchery. But Axl got sick, so they didn't get to see it. So they got to go to the art show anyway. So
so they came specifically for that, but then last minute the concert was canceled?
Correct. That is correct.
Serendipity, right? They show up at your door.
Yep.
So the thing I loved about this past weekend was the crowds were huge. The energy was on point. I mean, it was just like massive. It was great.
Yeah, St. Louis had been waiting for a nice weekend. It had been in the hundreds previously, so we really both dodged a bullet and the community was ready for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, I was so happy to have that coming off of some of these shows that had kind of a different energy to them. Sure. And there was a show earlier this season where there was just this big kind of lull where there weren't too many people walking through. And I had this customer walk by and she looked at us sitting there and kind of looking out at an empty aisle. And she gave me that look, Will, that look of pity.
Oh, you get a big frowny. You get
I'm sorry.
Poor Douglas. Yeah.
So she walks up to me, gets really close, and I think she feels the need to give me this pep talk. And she pats me on the shoulder and she says, "It's okay. You're going to be very successful someday."
Oh, brutal. God damn. I had I've got a good friend, a dear friend in Richmond, Virginia, who's a very successful landscape architect.
Yeah.
And she was running a crew and they were redoing the community median kind of project right around, it's like a whole planting thing. It was right around the spring and right down near City Hall. And they're doing this like a I don't want to say millions, but it was a lot of money and putting all this stuff into a sprucing up the city for the spring. And somebody rolled their window down and said, "Should have stayed in school." And the whole crew just busted out laughing. But it sounds a lot like that. You should have stayed in school, Douglas.
Well, I wasn't sure if somehow she had like these like psychic abilities, if she was like a Sylvia Brown or something. And she had a vision and she just saw like these big, pie in the sky kind of things for me or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Never know.
You're going to make it one of these days. Just stick with this thing. You'll be all right.
It was pretty funny. So
yeah, it's funny you were talking about collectors and multiple shows in different cities. And that does get me back to the fact that there are people that are art show fans. And I feel like that used to be a thing that would happen with the Florida circuit and folks would go down and if they weren't into the beach, they'd go and they'd run around to the Florida circuit.
Like
which,
every 20 miles you're talking or what?
Oh, yeah, you can't throw a rock. But I, it's funny. I actually have applied. I said I would never do it again, but since I moved to New Mexico, but I actually did apply. We'll see if I could make it work, but I did apply to some Florida shows this year. I find myself in the doldrums of winter kind of wishing that I had. And so let's give Will Armstrong Art some options, right? Let's see what we can do.
I think I spent a fair amount of time at my computer screen yesterday getting those Florida applications in too, which I'm sorry, I didn't want to deal with it. It's been like one of those things that I'm like, I can't focus on next year when we're still in the throes of this crazy year, you know?
Uh-huh.
And there you go. I mean, a deadline was coming due, and that peeled off the Band-Aid, and I got those applications in yesterday.
I started a bunch, and I went back, and yesterday I looked at them. It's kind of like my eggs. You know, you start the application and it logs you into your location, so it doesn't, even if I finish one that's due tonight by midnight, today, the fact that I started it like a month and a half ago, it makes it look like I finished. Once that Zap thing batches, that's how it comes into the list, isn't it? Do I understand that correctly?
Oh, are you saying like the order of how it's being shown?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know, because every show has the option to show the category randomly or to do it as they're submitted.
Don't tell me that, baby. Come on, I don't want to hear that.
I really don't know.
I can't hear that. Yeah. No, it's all, I did a good job. I did a really good job.
That's
the way it goes.
Good boy, Will. Good boy,
That's
Will
right.
Armstrong.
I did a good job.
Attaboy.
Oh, fuck. I can't do it. I don't want to do any shows anymore. Watch it. I'm not going to get into any. I heard your podcast. You don't want to do any shows.
We'll help you out with that one.
Yeah.
So, hey, getting home from a run of shows like this and getting all moved in, what does that kind of look like for you? I mean, I've thought about this. I wonder if some artists, if they get home from a long week or a busy run of shows, do they just like leave everything in the van and just take a couple of days off, or do you just like hit the ground running?
I mean, I don't know. I had to set my studio up, so I had to come back, and I left it a dump. Typically, I like to clean house before I leave, but it was a scramble to get out of here, and so it all fell on the studio. So I literally had paint in like stagnant cups, and I mean, it was pretty nasty when I got in here. And did it look like you got a bomb threat warning and you had to evacuate the building immediately? It was more like hobos, honestly. It just looked like a boxcar. Just pretty nasty. So I set my studio up, and typically I will leave everything in the van. I treat the van as a storage facility. I never unpack.
I was curious if your work can sit in the van, and if it gets damaged, it's fine in there.
It doesn't get damaged. I keep it all varnished and everything. It's not like it's temperature controlled, but I keep it all tight, so hopefully it doesn't warp. But no, I don't take anything out. I typically leave it. Besides laundry, there's the Dirty Undies theme of the broadcast.
Circling back.
It's all coming full. It got a little recall action as the comics.
I think Will has Dirty Undies on today, everyone, because he keeps talking about the Dirty Undies.
I've not even got a solo commando thing happening. It's not pleasant. But there's back to the disgusting banter. Man. Or nauseating banter.
Nauseating, yes.
Said. Yes. Wouldn't you love to meet that lady on the road?
Yeah.
Not so much. No, I mean, typically, if I have like more than 4 or 5 days, I feel like I can knock a painting out. So, but what I've found is that the kids have so many activities, and they're in opposite parts of the city. Like I'm 30 minutes into town during rush hour. And then 30 minutes back, it's also during rush hour, and no kid is synced up. Like they got to go home and then get to volleyball. Like there's a 2-hour break. So you got to get them home, and one can take the bus and get home, but then you got to get out there to get her, which is the opposite time of picking up the other one from cross country. And I cannot wait until my kid can drive, because it's making me insane.
Is that around the corner? Is it coming up, or how old is she?
She's 15. She just got into driver's ed training, so she'll get her learners. So she's 9.5 months until she can drive on her own. So next year, but
yeah,
next summer she can get her driver's license and good God.
I mean, I remember those
around.
days. You get home and it's all about family again, and then the whole juggling of, because our show life, it occupies so much energy and focus, when we go off to these shows. And then it's almost like we have to we forget about the stuff at home, and then you get home and then it's like you've got all of it. You've got your art, your work, and then you've got the regular stuff.
I'm spending about 4 hours in the car a day. I'm not kidding. Like 4 hours of drive time. I've already burned through, in 3 days, I've burned through a full 30-gallon tank of diesel.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm it's 4 hours a day. So an hour in the morning, and then the activities. There's no carpooling. I don't know a single one of their friends' parents. They're like, give me your friend's parent. I don't have their number.
Yeah, right. Convenient.
God. There's no carpooling today. It's just a nightmare. Just everybody driving all at once.
Oh, you're saying like in this day of raising kids that people just don't carpool? I mean,
no, not at all. Nobody ever. It's one parent and one kid, and there's nobody works together. It's just a nightmare.
Gosh.
That's just probably because I just don't know anybody.
Yeah. Well, our kids hated the idea of riding the bus, and we were like, "You are taking the bus," because literally, I mean, you can get a one piece made, and you have to turn around. Your day is already about being a taxi.
Yeah. I hate riding the bus. Well, guess what? I hate you not riding the bus.
There you go,
and my hate is advanced adult hate, and it trumps your child hate. And so you get to get on that goddamn bus. I actually succumbed to that whole thing, and I was like, I don't know what I thought. It was going to turn into West Side Story, and they'd take a shiv. But I was like, oh, you don't want to put them on the bus. And I was like, why the hell not? Unfortunately, they do after school activities, and they can't ride the bus because there's no bus that's picking them up from sports.
Mm-hmm.
So you want them to do sports and music, but then that's where you got to give them a ride.
It sucks. Yeah, it sucks all the time. My backdoor neighbor at the last show was Steve Urin. Was talking all about that whole juggling of kids and show life and how hard it is to get home, and you don't have the time to recoup from your weekend, and you are full-on parent, and what you just described is the total stress that we all go through.
Absolutely. And also the fact that, being a divorced parent and sharing the kids with their mom, when we have them, it's all of a sudden it's like go time all the time. And same thing for her. And it's like, she's got to be the one, and
definitely.
It's just it's a different kind of juggling.
Looking back on your conversation you had last season with Annie Bissoni, and you were saying it's like I can remember the conversation where you were saying that when you have your kids, it's almost like your art time gets really squished, and when they're gone, definitely. You can be really productive in the art business, but otherwise it's all about dad time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is the case. Luckily, I mean, I did get a studio downtown so that I can at least get an early start. But man, that is the case. I feel for the parents out there who are doing the juggling, and especially the double artist parents too. The Jason Brecks and Katie Harolds of the world who have young kids who are getting ready to start school and things like that. So heart goes out to them as well as me. My heart goes out to me, Douglas.
You first and everyone else second, right?
Yeah, move to a town that has kid Uber. They've got something they're working on.
Are they really? Is that a thing?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's set up everywhere yet, but I think in some of the more major things, they vet the drivers, so they're not just like, free kids.
There you go, like the Boy Scouts of America, right?
Oh, God. Yeah, that's a nightmare. Good Lord.
Well, the other thing about being neighbors with Steve that I thought was really cool is he started doing this thing with his neighbors where he'll do this collab thing. And him and I did that this past weekend where he did stuff on social media where he would showcase one of his cabinets with, a collection of our glass on top. And that had kind of an interesting reaction. We had a lot of people see our work who wouldn't normally have seen it, through his followers, and the same with me, people seeing his work who are our followers.
Yeah, that's smart. That's really cool.
Yeah, so shout out to him. It was his suggestion, and I really am happy that, that we did that. Pretty cool.
Was that just a social media post, or did he have one of your pieces in his booth?
We did a collaborative post that we sent out to all of our followers that then gets shared.
Gotcha.
And he has his one of his older daughters work on that. So she kind of is in the loop on how to get that stuff out there. I think some of us 50-year-olds are still feeling like we're trying to figure that whole system out.
I don't understand. What's the difference between a reel and a story? I actually don't know. I'm making, Rip Van Winkle voice, but that's because I have a long white beard. I don't understand it. Yeah. But no, I just push buttons wildly when I'm doing that. Yeah. I'm doing a reproduction. I shouldn't have done this. I'm going to own this one. Okay. I am a huge collector of printmaking, right? I love lithography and linocut and real woodcuts.
Oh, nice.
And, the Harmstons and I mean, all sorts of people. I don't want to just get off into listing, but
right.
My wife and I are both big fans, and we collect it. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty shitty when you go out and you call your reproductions prints.
Oh, but, yeah, right.
You're not supposed to. You're supposed to call it reproductions, and I typically do, but
just add to the confusion.
You do. It's like, well, I pressed print. It's a print. F you. No, you can't do it. But I just did it. So I just did that on Instagram. I did a big reproduction drop. But okay, I'm going to ask you a question, just aesthetically, okay?
Okay.
As you're a radio guy now, right?
I guess I've officially dipped my toe in the water.
Absolutely. Okay, you're a recording artist.
Okay.
So what sounds better as far as like alliteration and kind of your onomatopoeia?
Okay.
Reproduction drop or print drop?
Of course, print drop. Print drop sounds rock and roll. Yeah, for sure.
Print drop 2023 in your face.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it looked better. It sounded better. Reproduction. It's got 3 syllables. So sorry, Carol Swayze.
It sounds like a robot,
Yeah, reproduction. Well, you are a robot, you goddamn machines. That's what they're thinking out there. So I apologize in advance, but I did a big thing and updated my website and called it a big print drop because I've been lazy and had not put any of my reproductions on there.
Well, it got me excited. So, I mean, I've got some of mine picked out, and any listeners out there want to check out your print drop, go online.
Don't do that. I didn't pay for any advertising.
Go online and get it. It's a good deal. It's good work.
All right. It is 20% off. This episode of the Independent Artist Podcast is brought to you by Zap, the digital application service where artists and art festivals connect.
So I've started using the events list feature in Zap to search up some different shows to fill those holes in my schedule.
I feel like I should have something to say, but I wasn't really listening to you because I'm looking at the events list right now, and It's pretty cool.
Okay,
so you drop the menu down, and there at the bottom, go scrolling all the way, about third thing down in the smaller print, it just says events list.
That's right. All of the shows appear here regardless of their application deadline. So you can use the filtering and the sorting to narrow down your search so that you can find that right show that fills your desired time frame or location.
I know a lot of people love that calendar. I like seeing the list of events. I like scrolling through and doom scrolling late at night. It's like online dating. They don't let you swipe left or right, but you can figure out who you want to date in the coming up year.
Yeah, that's really cool about what you got going there on your website sale. But I wanted to also take this opportunity to give a little bit of news about our sponsors.
Oh.
So I know, Will, you're not on the board of NAIA anymore.
No.
Nope, you have.
I'm not.
You stepped down.
I did.
And
by stepping down, that means that I no longer feel bad about not attending the meetings.
There you
go. I just don't attend any meetings still. So really no changes. I just, not on the board.
All right. Well,
got it.
I do want to share some kind of new things going on with NAIA. We've got kind of a facelift going on.
Right on.
We're updating the whole look of our marketing. So there's a new logo. There's a whole new website that's about to get launched. And coming soon to a packet near you, will be this beautiful postcard telling you all about NAIA and kind of promoting some of the cool stuff NAIA is doing. So look out for that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's nice. And there are, it does have a breath of fresh air, kind of the board is getting a bit younger. So it's nice to see that kind of branding coming up. And that's, as I was out the door, I kind of checked in and saw some of the branding things, and I was like, oh yeah, this is going in a really good direction. So I'm excited for everybody to see what NAIA is up to.
Well, you like to use the expression smart guy. We were smart guys this go around here, Will. We decided to hire somebody that is actually in marketing. Andy Yucatel, Reiko Yucatel's husband, that's his job. I mean, he's
very cool
website designer, marketing, and sat down with the board, talked about kind of our vision for what we want to communicate, and he translated that into a whole layout, and it's beautiful. So look forward to that, everyone.
Very cool. I'm excited about that. Also, as far as sponsor news goes, Zap is still doing their survey. So get your voice heard on that. You can see it right as soon as you go to zapplication.org. Right up there at the top of the kind of splash page, they're asking for your input.
Right.
So make sure you check that out.
And it's good. I mean, it's like if you have the opportunity to express your experience, take it. I mean, if there's something you want to communicate, then do.
Absolutely. And if you're not the type that to fill those things out, then you especially are the type that they want to hear from, because I typically feel like it's almost like polling, when the polls get all so screwed up. It's like, well, you're missing the entire audience of people that don't like polling.
Right.
So that's why it all gets screwed up. So be loud and proud about it. Douglas and I have both gone on there and filled that sucker out. It's super easy. Just take you a couple of minutes of your time and just do it while you're procrastinating your next application online. So check it out.
So like Will said, you can click the banner at the top of the page, or I will have the direct link in the episode notes, so you can just open it up on your phone and click.
Now, Douglas, you've mentioned those episode notes a couple of different times.
Yeah.
Where does one find those episode notes? Is it on the just where you stream the show? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, whatever your podcast service is, if you open it up and hit see more information, it'll open up a page
information about that particular episode.
Yeah, it'll talk about the guest that's there, what we're going to talk about, links, all that good stuff. So check that out.
And while you're filling stuff out and you're in a big filling stuff out mood, drop us a review and let people know. The more people that review the show, the more people that hear about the show.
Right.
So we have had quite a few listeners over our time. We have had over 50,000 listens to our show. So that's been pretty exciting. Little benchmark for our little podcast that could. So thank you out there for listening to the broadcast.
We gave ourselves a little pat on the back at that point. I mean, that was a kind of a nice achievement, don't you think?
Absolutely, I think so. Yeah. So speaking of those 50,000 listens, a lot of those questions and comments and things that our guests make, while Douglas and I are putting these things together, a lot of times we don't have time to go back and talk about some of the things that were said and some of the interesting points that some of our guests have made. So we thought we'd take the opportunity this week to kind of rewind the tape on the past episodes and review and comment upon some of the things that our guests have said. So do you want to kick us off, Douglas?
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of times like we've had to record our preambles just for timing's sake ahead of the recording. And so when I'm editing the interview, I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I wonder what Will thinks about that. Or, oh, I wonder what he would say about that.
Right.
And so I've kind of gone back through the last year and pulled out some of the points that we've talked about with our guests, but I don't know that we've actually addressed with each other.
No. Yeah, we never really get the chance. It's funny. We have some things in the can where I'm like, oh, what a wonderful talk you just had with so-and-so. And like, you haven't even talked to him yet. like they're still, like you still at this point haven't interviewed him, but you can pretend, you can put me through AI and make me say just about anything you want at this point, right?
You're telling all the secrets, Will.
I got him. I'll lay it. It's a break down the third wall, Douglas. All right. So what's the first one you want to kick off? What's the first person here?
Okay. So this last year, we had 3 guests who brought up The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell.
Yeah.
I've never read it. Have you read it?
I drank a lot. I can't remember.
You can't remember. I can't remember.
No, wait. I kinda, but who? No, I have read it. Absolutely, I have read it.
Okay, well, I get the theme, which is like the
Yes.
idea that, which seems really fitting within our kind of career that we do, where it's like these shows and creating this body of work and the travel. It really does feel like we are kind of putting ourselves out there and
Right.
kind of like throwing ourselves out there to faith and fate, I
Right.
guess. But like Trey and Lisa, Christine, and Patricia, they are all kind of talking about searching for their body of work and relating it to that.
The hero's journey.
Their hero's
yeah,
journey.
I mean, basically the hero's journey is, I mean, it's going to resonate with you all as you define it, because it's Joseph Campbell's theory, which it describes the common hero's narrative. So somebody sets out on a journey. They have a transformative adventure, and then they come home, right? I mean, what are we freaking doing it every weekend?
Right, exactly.
As long as you got your eyes and your ears and your heart open, I mean, you have the opportunity to have those journeys pretty frequently doing what we do.
Last episode, behind the scenes, we kind of struggled to have a conversation about what we do because we were so in the weeds with just getting ready to get off to the next one. The list
Right.
was just insane. And it was kind of hard to be kind of introspective about what we make and connecting with other people. But there is just something about that interaction out on the road that is like food for me. I mean, it's a spiritual kind of a replenishment.
So when you're talking about that, as far as how you guys tick, are you talking about the people that come to see your work, or are you talking about the people that you see on a semi-regular basis, the artists?
The artists. Well, I wasn't thinking about the artists. That is a component, the social aspect for sure. But I feel like the interacting with collectors who get so excited about what we all do. I don't want to just say it's like me, but what we do, it's the source that makes me want to come home and keep working. I don't know. What is that experience like for you?
It's twofold. I mean, I do find that during the winter months when I don't have a lot of shows, and I've got that introvert extrovert personality where when I'm left alone, I really want to be left completely alone to make work. And that can go for days and days on end, and sometimes weeks if I'm lucky. I really only just want to see my wife and kids, and that's it. And then at the end of that, I'm like, man, I need somebody to respond to this work and tell me whether they like it. And it's like, I haven't been told I'm great in a while, need to get on the road.
Yeah.
And then you could also go to these shows, and it's especially damning to the ego when you have gotten ready for a show that's been good in the past, and then you go and you fall flat, and you're like, oh my God, not only did it not give me what I needed, it took away from me what I had to keep me going. So that's a danger that I've found myself falling into, just the ups and downs of this industry. And sometimes you're the opening act, which I've said before, and you're the opening act to somebody else's great show. And they gotta have somewhere to walk on the way to somebody else's booth, and it just happens to be your 10 by 10. So it's a tough business, and to keep your heart open and keep making good work when you think it's good and you've had kind of a shit weekend. Man, I feel like I'm one show away from despair at all times and self-loathing.
Yeah.
It's tough to keep it going. And I know you didn't necessarily ask that with this question, but that's just where it happened to be.
And I want us to kind of just go with it wherever it happens, because I know exactly what that feeling you're talking about, where you just, you suddenly feel like you're in a slump, and you need those, whether or not they buy or not, but you need that's something to push up against. Like, okay, I'm not like missing the mark here. The enthusiasm is like so needed for what we do.
Absolutely. And sometimes it means that, like St. Louis, one of my favorite parts about the show has nothing to do with the actual show, but the fact that there is a central hotel. Like typically we go to these shows and there are multiple hotels and options for you to stay. This particular one happens to have a great restaurant, and it's kind of one of the only ones, and it's got a great bar, and pretty much every night, and especially Sunday night, there is just a huge get together of people, and it just means a lot to be able to walk in, and you get to drop in for 5 minutes and talk to David Bjerstrom and his husband Bill, or you get to see Amy and Phil come in and get a chance to talk to them. I think Phil Crone had posted something on Facebook about, he just posted kind of open-ended, God, we're lucky, and that's where it does feel lucky. And I did get a boost from that, of just talking, getting a chance to see Phil and talk to him again in the lounge, and get a chance to talk to some of these other James and Carrie Pierce were in there. My lovely wife and I got to go, and we got to bring the dogs, because it's a dog-friendly hotel. So I got to go to a party with some of my very favorite people and bring my dogs, which is amazing, Well,
not only being just like centrally located, when I checked out, I actually thanked the front. I'm like, please pass on to the sales team. Thank you for giving us a decent rate. I mean, it made it so that we could be there. It made the show easier to do.
Well, I didn't want to thank the front desk, because the bartender was
Oh, really?
God, she was terrible.
Oh, no.
We were spending so much money with these people, and it's such a great party. And every time you go to refill your libation,
the hospitality industry has become less hospitable, let's just say.
Oh, totally.
It's like
they feel like they're doing you a favor, and I guess they are, but they're getting paid for it.
And we're paying them if they have a good attitude about it. So, yeah.
I guess. I just don't like young people anymore. Well, get off my lawn.
A sign of that long gray beard growing in, right?
Yeah, it's what I was talking to Eric. Oh, this is amazing. Got to tell you a quick story about St. Louis really quick. I was lucky enough to have Erica Iman and her lovely husband Eric and their little one right behind my booth, and what great booth neighbors. But they typically travel in a double booth, or when given the opportunity. St. Louis is one that won't allow you to have a double. You just have a single, no matter whether you have two bodies or whatever. Everybody, even playing field, everybody gets a 10x10 corner. They brought their single booth, but they brought their double booth tent top. So it was totally business on the front and party in the rear. Their booth had a mullet. And they even tied it off in the back with a big ponytail. So that was like, everybody uses their back storage for storage. They had to use it for their booth mullet. So I'll post that on our Facebook page, because with their permission, I took a little snapshot of their booth mullet.
That is hilarious, honestly.
Yeah, really good stuff. But I did used to say this when I was younger, man, because I've been doing this for 20 years. And when I first started to get into it, and I'd start to get like all salty about certain things, and I had this joke that I could feel my ponytail growing in. Yeah, because every one of those salty artists were just like, hey, here's another reason that shows suck, and you're not going to be a young man for long. And it's like, you can just feel, you can feel that salt and pepper ponytail growing in. But
there you go.
Yeah, they had one, man. They definitely, they had it.
Well, speaking of Erica Iman, one of the conversations that we had in her episode was the whole idea of risk. And specifically what we were talking about was making of the work. That idea of you push the line without crossing the line. Like it needs to be kind of risky. Like, I could lose this at any minute. And then sometimes we do. I mean, do you ever have that reality in your work?
Yeah. And, there are shows that I feel like are more receptive to different avant-garde kind of your weird stuff. And there are shows that they typically will gravitate towards those. And Plaza, I feel like, is one of them. I feel like you can get pretty weird at Plaza if you have the time, or it's a good opportunity to showcase some different work. A lot of these shows are, Cherry Creek, St. Louis, Plaza, a lot of these kind of bigger shows, a lot of times will be those markets for they give you the opportunity to showcase some of your different stuff. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
So when you think of risk, you're referring to kind of like subject matter, maybe a topic that might be a little edgier or something?
For me, yeah. I am. And for you guys, it's probably more technique.
It's physical. It's definitely like if we heat the glass, 1 second too long, it could just get away from us. And it's riding that line. If we stay back from riding that line, it loses its pizzazz. It loses that special quality about it. It's what I love about glass. It's like an adrenaline thing. I just live for it, honestly.
Interesting. I do have a tendency to rework or to overwork my work. And what I've developed over the years is a very, very clear steps in my work. And I've talked about that on the show before. But as long as I'm following, as soon as one step is over, I shut the door on that one. So I can maybe rework that first step. But once that one's done, I'm like, okay, I'm done with that. On to step 2. And as soon as I'm done with the 5 steps of the work, it's done. I'm never going back and reworking something completely.
Well, I think that when I am in your booth and I'm looking at your work up close and all the detail, every little choice of all the things you add to your paintings, and I'm thinking there's just so many layers to it and so many ways to go with it. And I could see that if I were you, I wouldn't know where to stop. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny. I say this to clients all the time, but it's part of my spiel.
Sure.
So if I get into robot voice, then I apologize. But I do try to say as much as I can with as few shapes as possible. So it's an illustration technique that I picked up in school and kind of working through that. So that part of it, once I have that sketched out, I'm like, okay, now to simplify it with the black or with the ink. It's almost like comic book drawing, but thanks. But I do feel for other artists that talk about, I can't remember whether it was Beth talking about Beth Bajorski or Mark Winter talking about his wife, Beth Bajorski. It might have been Mark Winter, but I think he was talking, it could have been him talking in a private conversation too, but he was talking about people just never really knowing. It's like, well, this didn't work. I'm going to rework this. I'm like, well, how many times can you rework it? And it's like, well, it's endless. And that part in my own psychosis, in my own anxiety, I have to have those finite steps or I'll never let a piece be.
Yeah, you'll have five paintings on top of a painting, right?
Well, yeah, and you can see a spot in an illustration style like I've got that you can see where I've reworked something because I have to go back in and paint, take the gesso out and repaint it white on top of it. And so the layers no longer shine through. So anyway.
Well, another element of risk that we addressed a lot this year was the physical risk. I mean, look at David Mayhew going out and chasing tornadoes to get his artwork, or Lisa Christine doing her human rights activism with slavery, with documenting slavery, or even Ray hopping on a raft and fleeing Cuba. I mean, these stories were just so not crazy, but just intense.
Are you saying they have more risk than me putting some gesso on a guy that I didn't like?
Those guys, I really admire them. Yeah, I really admire that.
I do too. And I meant to talk to Lisa Christine. I saw her at the little St. Louis Sunday party, and I meant to go over and speak to her, and I didn't. So if I came off, she's so interesting and she's so intense that I got scared. I didn't want to talk to her. I got scared. I did. I got scared. I didn't say hi.
I'm right there with you. And I told her this. So this isn't.
She's not scary. She's just she's so cool.
I told her at Sun Valley. I said, I'm sorry. I get a little tongue tied. I'm a little intimidated. And she said, "Stop it. You stop it right now." And she gave me this big hug. She is so approachable.
I think I came off sometimes you do that, and they're like, God, I think I just big leagued you. And I'm like, I'm like, God, I just that's my biggest fear. I don't want to go in and be like, yeah, what an asshole.
Yeah.
I just I'm the least bit trying to do that. I try to be as kind as I can, but sometimes I'm scared of the lady and I want to talk to the lady. She's maybe mean.
A little scaredy cat.
Her works better than me and it's more interesting as she takes risks.
Yeah.
And I gesso little dudes on my pieces. I just put a little guy. Anyway,
anyone who's into those stories, you should go back and listen again or listen for the first time. Those 3 artists had some very interesting stories about risk. So
cool.
Well, another thing about risk is is kind of the physical challenges that a lot of our guests, myself included, you included. I mean, we all have been going through all these physical struggles over the last number of years. And those talks were pretty powerful with Kat Tesla, Oliver Hampel, and Anthony Hansen.
I feel like I had such a minor fixable thing that it's such a minor. Actually, here, not to talk about me, but if you're in the least bit a football fan, Aaron Rodgers had a Achilles snap, and they've got it on slow-mo, and you can watch the Achilles go boing in his leg, and you can see that's exactly what it is. So
did he go down like the flounder on a dock, like you said you were?
Absolutely, flip-flopping all over. He was much more of a man about it than he was. Help me! I just he had other muscles to draw from, but he hopped on the cart and was just like, nope, get the cart, and he can't walk. So that was interesting.
Yeah,
walking around on a flippy floppy Daffy Duck foot. But so many of our artist friends, Kat is just a goddamn inspiration every day. Every time I've listened to that show, she's incredible, and her cancer battle, her and her husband too, because what a good supportive dude he is. So that's an incredible episode.
Absolutely. And
Oliver going through the next round.
Oh my gosh. Right, for sure.
His brain aneurysm. We talked about that.
Yeah. But the thing that I took away from all of that was what Anthony Hansen had to say. And that was how little it takes as humans to show empathy to somebody who's having a hard time.
Absolutely.
And that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. Empathy is what it's all about. And even anybody just kind of going through, whether they're going through either side of a divorce or it's just a little bit of empathy goes a very long way. And how are you doing, by the way? We haven't talked about your foot. It's been a year since you've had your surgery, maybe a little bit over.
It's crazy because we are coming to like the year anniversary of it. And I am having all of these kind of like moments where it's like a full circle thing. Like I'm having memories of last year when I had to pull myself off the road, and I had to prepare for my ankle to be completely rebuilt. And up until about a month ago, I was questioning if I made the right choice because I was worse off than before the surgery.
Right.
And so
it's been a long road. So where do you stand?
Where do I stand?
What could he do? Where do you stand?
Honestly, it's like the clouds have parted, and I'm not 100% there yet, but I am so much closer. I'm better now than I've ever been on this ankle. And I am really starting to feel hopeful and positive. So that empathy that I was talking about, that people have shown me, it's gotten me through. And
wow,
I finally feel like I'm at the point where, okay, the show season is done. And now I can start focusing for the first time in a couple of years on innovating and starting to do the things that Renee and I have had to put on hold in the studio. And we can actually start trying new things. It isn't just like sticking the thumb in the hole in the dam. It's
right.
Finally a creative period again. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's incredible. I'm really, really happy to hear that. I remember back at just Old Town in June in Chicago, and you having a really hard time because of the slope of the street, and me not even. I'm like, I was worried about you at that point because I didn't feel like that street was that sloped. Like I'm like that. This is not bad. How's my buddy going to be when he gets to Park City? I was worried about you at that point. So that's fantastic to hear. And I haven't, I remember right before the operation and having some conversations with you about innovations and different ways you want to take some wall pieces and things. So I'm excited for you and Renee having her partner back too, and getting some of that too. So that's fantastic.
And the
news.
good thing is I was talking to Mark Lewanski about this, where how, I don't know if it's different for people who work in a more three-dimensional and with materials, whatever, but when you kind of feel like you've got like a new body coming, or new kind of where it involves experimentation with the materials. Yeah. That this time period that we're giving ourselves is really, it's an investment in your future. I mean, you kind of have to step back from what you can produce regularly to experiment and see where is this going to take us.
Yeah. And And where, I'll say this too, because sometimes those steps that we take are not. I did a series that was not successful on the street. It just didn't end up flying off the shelves like I wanted it to. But I did have to learn how to paint a little bit differently. So in that instance, the other pieces that I make are stronger. So, while I'm not thrilled with the results of the one series, I got it out of my system, and I'm on to something else. So,
cool.
Yeah, I do feel like sometimes you're going to learn something whether you wanted to or not, and it may not always be the case.
It's not like a direct correlation. Like maybe the thing that you've dreamed up,
right,
the energy you put into that might actually benefit a different body of work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and sometimes it takes another artist to. I remember Jay McDougall came into my booth. He was another one of my neighbors. God, we had a great neighborhood.
Totally.
I was right next to my wife, and then like in our quadrant, we had Erica Iman, Jay McDougall, my wife, and myself. So I was like, I couldn't have been happier with that. And then like right across the way, I was sharing space in my quadrant with Michael Paul Cole, amazing photographer and found object frame maker, and honestly, just one of the gentlest dudes to talk to. Just his voice makes you I got to get him on the podcast if we can.
Absolutely.
That would be awesome, because he's just like zen in the art of being that guy. So see what we can do on that end,
right? For sure. I'd love to hear her talk with him.
Podcast wish list. All right, we'll add it to the list.
And then kind of moving on to another topic we've covered over the year is most recently with Marlena Rose about this idea of high-end, highbrow galleries and feeling like the art show world that we do, the art fairs and stuff, maybe doesn't fit in, like how they can navigate the two together, So we've got like Kirsten Stingel and Tom Wargen. They also talk about doing like, Art Miami and doing the high-end galleries, but then how we can navigate working in this world.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Just keeping it balanced and trying to do different things. And as far as that goes, and correct me if this isn't what you asked, but I'll be a politician about it and just answer the question that I wanted you to ask.
Well, it's open-ended, so asking. Honestly, just wherever it takes
let somebody else do the heavy lifting. The galleries that I am involved with, let them, if they want to do the big shows. I've had a couple of them come to me in the past and be like, "Hey, are you interested in this? If I apply to this show as the gallery, would you be able to help be a force with that?" I'm like, absolutely. What time of year, et cetera. Yeah, I can supply you with work for that, and I'm on board. That's going to be tricky too. Like it's okay. Well, I don't want to pay for the booth. But I will supply my work still at the 50%, and you do with my 50% that you're taking whatever you want to do. You know what I mean? Like if you want to do sofa or Art Basel or something like that, I'm still gonna want 50% of my sale price, even if it's the only piece that's sold in your $25,000 booth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I still want the $1,500 from the $3,000 painting.
Right.
So. I don't know. I'm more into letting somebody else take the risk and let that be part of their calculation.
Yeah, I do. I hear you there. And I like what Marlena was saying about how when she came out of art school and she had thought to be a serious, respected artist, she was going to go the gallery route. And when she had her entry on art fairs, she felt that sense of tension, that sense of, I don't do that. And she felt kind of snobby about it. Well, I don't do that. But now she has worked her way into that market, and she has found a way to keep both worlds happy and to be funnels that she is satisfied with. And I think that is really, really a cool way to look at that. So if anyone is struggling with how do I navigate art show world with fine art gallery world, she was a good one with a lot of input on that one, I thought.
Right. That is a really good part of her talk. Yeah, and I know I didn't really answer your question, but I do have a hard time like the one gallery that I really do love is run by another art show artist. So I don't ever run in. They know exactly what I do because they come from this world and entered that world. So I don't really have to answer those questions. I'm lucky in that respect.
I like that they come from this world. And I like that what you're saying about, as artists, we get to curate who we work with. Some galleries, if they put restrictions or something on us that isn't comfortable for us in our business model, kind of coming back to what we talked about earlier in this episode, is saying no to them is okay. That there's strength in that. And it's cool that she knows, or this other gallery knows, what your experience is, and it maybe makes for a better working relationship then.
It does, yeah. So it's really funny. I was looking for a Chuck Close quote to tell you about artists saying no, and instead I came on a Warren Buffett quote that almost says the same thing, and it's almost like I've talked about different musicians and musical artists talking about the important thing being the space between the notes. This is like the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. Wow. And that's a Warren Buffett quote.
Oh my gosh.
I'll skip the Chuck Close. I mean, because don't we have to be a little Chuck Close and a little Warren Buffett in order to be any kind of success? Isn't that the yin and the yang?
I vacillate between that because then there's this other school of thought where they're like, say yes to everything because we might be afraid to step into something unexplored if our first reaction is to put up a wall. So, I mean, I don't know.
Well,
I guess you have to feel it.
In creativity, I think that you have to say yes to your own creative process. But when somebody's asking for your time, it's like, I think it's a lot easier to say no. It's a lot easier to say, no, that's not my, can you do this? Can you do that? So I see your style. Can you do this comic book illustration? Can you do this? I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
Can you do my T-shirt? The only thing I say yes to almost every time is album art. Oh. I love doing album art, and I typically do it for free.
Okay.
So I just like it. Unless it's going to, I mean, the Stones haven't come knocking. I'd probably, I'd charge them. Actually, you know what a Stones fanatic I am?
Of course.
Yeah, their new album art. They got a new album coming out in October.
Oh, wow.
Their new album the art is shit. It's terrible.
Oh.
It's some of the worst album art I've ever seen. I would have given it to him for free. Talk about exposure. Oh. Good God. Talk about understanding the assignment. And oh, man.
Well,
it's just like this digital AI looking shitty airbrush 90s.
That's hard
Adobe
when your heroes
crap.
are not living up to the album art as you would want them to.
Oh, God. I just, hopefully the album's better than the album art. Good God.
Well, I've never said this to somebody who comes in and wants a special glass piece, like when they will want something from us and they say we do exactly what they want. And when I get to the end of what they're describing, I'll be like, the only thing in common with what they're describing to me is that it's glass. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
right.
And I'm like, well, what exactly about my work do you like, except that the material I'm using is what you're looking for?
Right. Yeah, you asked me a couple of different times over the show, does anybody say anything stupid to you? And I don't know why I've been drawing a blank, but I'm like, whatever. I guess I just stopped dwelling on it, but I remember one in particular. This guy came into my booth and he saw that he was, he saw my booth sign and, Richmond, Virginia. It's where I lived for most of my life. And he's like, Richmond, Virginia. Oh, man, I love Civil War art. And I was like, okay. And he's like, that's what you do. I was like, no, that I've never. And he's like, yeah. Civil War art.
Totally.
It's just really, I was like, okay. He's like, can you, so this is what you do when you paint the Civil War? I'm like, I've never ever painted the Civil War at all. I hate, actually. And he was like, what? You're from Richmond. I was like, yeah, I hate Civil War art. I will never. He's like, well, would you do a thing like with like a Robert E. Lee? And I'm like,
you're like, dude,
no, I will not paint Robert E. Lee. I actually did have an idea. That's whatever. I did, like, during the demonstrations, Black Lives Matter demonstrations and George Floyd demonstrations. I had an idea to kind of honor that movement.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't my story. I just couldn't do it.
Sure.
It's like I kind of wanted to do, I don't know, I wanted to team with a graffiti artist. And then like they were like, no.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of the people I talked to, they were like, no, that's not what I do. And I'm like, perfect, good.
Perfect.
Just say no.
Just say no.
All right.
And then to kind of wrap up our episode here is the conversations that we had with people like, Duke Clausen or the Zachmans or Amy Flynn.
Yeah.
They have so many stories from the road. And I just feel like, there's so many reasons we do this podcast. And the cool thing with our conversations really is kind of like sharing amongst ourselves those outrageous stories that, you just can't make the shit up,
No. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I totally get it. It's funny. You really can't. And it's, I don't know, a lot of it keeps you going and a lot of it kind of beats you down. But man, just keep saying no, people. It's it'll get you there, right?
That's right. Well, Will, this has been a fun kind of look back and end of the summer kind of wrap up of the season. And it's been kind of a really good talk. I'm really happy we had it.
Yeah, it's been a good year for the most part. And a lot of times this thing has kept me going. So I appreciate you, sir. And thanks for doing all the work that you do on the show.
You as well.
Folks, we've got a lot of exciting things coming up as we get back into our studios and some really fun people to talk to, some information and inspiration, and that's what we're trying to do, as well as a couple laughs. So thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
All right. See you in the streets of Kansas City.
Speaking of Plaza, what do you think they're going to drink out of this year? Is it fish bowls or Campbell Packs?
Fish bowls.
Maybe this time like a wheelbarrow.
I think they're going to be buying Sigworth glass vessels, and they're going to be filling those full of margaritas or whatever.
There you go. Fill them with hooch. Put a straw in that and get it done. All right, Douglas. We'll see you next time.
All right. Take care.
This podcast is brought to you by the National Association of Independent Artists. The website is naiaartists.org.
Also sponsored by Zapplication. That's zapplication.org. And while you're at it, find us on social media and engage in these conversations.
Be sure to subscribe to this podcast to be notified when we release new episodes.
Oh, and if you like the show, we'd love it if you would give us your 5-star rating and offer up your most creative review on your podcast streaming service. See you next time.